The sky burned crimson as three massive dragons circled above the jagged mountain peaks of Draken Valley. Their scales glittered like polished armor in the dying light, wings spanning wider than transport ships as they rode the thermal currents with contemptuous ease. On the plateau below, Caden Voss stood alone, his weathered combat suit the only barrier between his flesh and the scorching heat radiating from the creatures above. Sweat trickled down his spine as he watched their deadly dance, each pass bringing them closer, each roar vibrating through his chest like thunder. "They're testing you," came the gravelly voice of Commander Lennis through Caden's comms. "Stand your ground, or you're dead before you start." Caden didn't respond. The commander was safely ensconced in the observation bunker 5 kilometers away, alongside the Drakathy Council members who had summoned him to this remote outpost on the edge of human space. They had been clear: tame a dragon or die trying. The Drakathy Alliance needed proof that humans were worthy of joining their ranks, and Caden, War Orphan, troublemaker, last hope, had been volunteered for the job. The smallest dragon, still large enough to crush a shuttle with one clawed foot, broke formation and dove toward him. Air screamed around its streamlined body as it plummeted, jaws open to reveal teeth like serrated blades. Caden's muscles tensed, but he remained rooted to the spot, dark eyes fixed on the approaching monster. At the last possible moment, the dragon pulled up, its wing tips slicing the air mere centimeters from Caden's face. The backdraft knocked him sideways, sending him stumbling across the rocky ground. He regained his footing just as the second dragon made its approach, this one skimming even closer. Inside the observation bunker, the gathered Drakathy elders clicked their mandibles in disapproval. Towering insectoid beings with carapaces ranging from deep blue to burnished copper, they watched the human with compound eyes that reflected no emotion. Their translator devices hummed as they communicated. "The human will die," stated Elder Vex, his voice flat and unconcerned, like the others before him. Commander Lennis, the only other human present, clenched his jaw. "Give him time. Caden isn't like the others." "We have given humans sufficient opportunities," replied Elder MYK, her copper carapace gleaming under the bunker lights. "3 candidates. 3 failures. The dragons have spoken. Your species lacks the necessary qualities for leadership within our alliance." "What qualities are those exactly?" Lennis demanded, frustration evident in his voice. "You've never specified what you're looking for." "That is because we do not know," admitted Elder Zen, the oldest of the Drakathy present. "For 10,000 cycles, the dragons have chosen our leaders. We do not choose them, they choose us. When Grand Elder Tix died, we expected the dragons to select his successor from among our most worthy candidates. Instead, they rejected all who came before them." "Then your oracle spoke of a human," Lennis said. "Yes, a most disturbing prophecy." Elder Vex's mandibles clicked rapidly. "An off-worlder, an orphan, one who knows the void between stars. The dragons will bow to this one, and through this one, our people will find new paths among the stars." Outside, the third and largest dragon had begun its descent. Unlike the others, this beast moved with deliberate slowness, its massive body blotting out the sun as it approached. Its scales were obsidian black, absorbing rather than reflecting light, making it seem like a hole torn in reality itself. Caden felt his heart hammering against his ribs as the creature's gaze locked onto him. This was Draconis, the eldest and mightiest of the dragons, the one who had rejected every Drakathy candidate put forward to lead their people. The one who, according to their oracle, would only bow to a human orphan. Caden had laughed when Lennis first told him the prophecy. Now, facing the living mountain of muscle and scale descending toward him, laughter was the furthest thing from his mind. Draconis landed with surprising grace, the ground trembling beneath Caden's feet as the dragon's claws dug into the rocky plateau. Up close, the creature was even more terrifying, each scale the size of a dinner plate, its head alone larger than the transport ship that had brought Caden to this world. Steam hissed from its nostrils as it lowered its massive head to inspect him. Caden remained motionless, fighting every instinct screaming at him to run. He could feel the dragon's hot breath washing over him, smell the metallic tang that reminded him of the battlefield where he'd lost his parents as a child. The memory should have paralyzed him with fear, But instead, something unexpected happened. He found himself reaching out, hand extended toward the dragon's snout. In the observation bunker, the Drakathy elders surged to their feet, mandibles clicking frantically. "Stop him!" cried Elder Vex. "No one touches the dragons. It is forbidden." Linus shook his head, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Too late for that. On the plateau, Caden's palm made contact with Draconis' scale-armored snout. The dragon went rigid, a sound like grinding boulders emanating from deep in its chest. For a heartbeat, time seemed suspended. Then, without warning, Caden's mind exploded with images and sensations not his own. Stars wheeling overhead, the taste of lightning, the joy of flight through storm clouds, memories of battles fought centuries ago, loss, pain, loneliness stretching across millennia. He gasped, knees buckling under the psychic onslaught. But he didn't break contact. Couldn't break contact. The connection between them had become a conduit, and through it flowed not just the dragon's thoughts, but his own as well. The smoking ruins of a colony world. The faces of his parents, frozen in his memory at the moment of their deaths. Years in refugee centers and military orphanages. The void he'd carried inside him since that day. A void that matched the one he now sensed in Draconis. "You're alone," Caden whispered. The words meant only for the dragon. Like me. Draconis' massive head tilted slightly, those ancient eyes studying Caden with new interest. In his mind, Caden heard a voice, deep, resonant, and unmistakably non-human. "You understand solitude," the dragon communicated. "Yet you are but a fleeting spark compared to my flame. What could you possibly offer one who has witnessed the birth and death of stars?" Caden didn't have a ready answer. What could he, a 26-year-old human orphan with nothing to his name but combat training and a lifetime of survivor's guilt, offer to a creature of such ancient power? But as the question hung between them, he realized that the very fact that they were communicating at all was the answer. "Connection," he said simply. "Something neither of us has had in a very long time." The dragon's eyes, impossibly deep pools of amber flecked with gold, narrowed. "Many have sought to connect with me and my kind. All have failed. They wanted to use you," Caden replied, the knowledge coming to him through their link. "To control you. To harness your power for their own ends. That's not what I want." "What do you want, human?" Caden considered the question. The honest answer surprised even him. "To belong somewhere. To find purpose. Same as you, I think." A rumble like distant thunder vibrated through Draconis' massive body. In Caden's mind, he sensed something unexpected, amusement. "Presumptuous, to think you know the desires of a dragon," Draconis communicated. But not entirely incorrect. In the observation bunker, the Drakathy elders watched in stunned silence as the great black dragon lowered its head further, bringing its eye level with the tiny human figure. None of them could hear the conversation taking place, but the posture of both beings spoke volumes. "Impossible," whispered Elder MYK. "In all our recorded history, no dragon has ever engaged like this with any being." "The prophecy," Elderzen murmured. "Perhaps." Commander Linus said nothing, but his weathered face betrayed cautious hope. On the plateau, Caden was learning the truth of the dragons, not the legends the Drakathy had built around them, but the reality. Through their mental link, Draconis revealed their origins, not native to this world, but travelers, like humans, from a distant star system. Not magical beasts, but bioengineered guardians, created by an ancient civilization to protect and guide younger species. "The Drakathy found us in stasis," Draconis explained. "They awakened us, but understood only fragments of our purpose. They built myths where truth would have served better. And now," Caden asked, "now we are trapped, bound to this world and this role by codes written into our very being. We must choose their leaders, but the current candidates lack vision. They seek only to maintain what exists, not to grow beyond it." Caden frowned. "And that's where I come in? Because I'm human? Because you are an outsider who understands loss? Because you have journeyed among the stars, as we once did? Because you carry within you both destruction and creation, the very duality that defined our creators?" The two smaller dragons had landed nearby, watching the exchange with keen interest. Through his connection with Draconis, Caden could sense their curiosity, and their initial skepticism giving way to something like respect. I don't know the first thing about leading an alien species, Caden admitted. Leadership is not about knowing, Draconis replied. It is about learning, about adaptation, qualities your kind possesses in abundance. A shadow passed over the plateau as clouds gathered overhead. The air crackled with electricity, the prelude to one of the fierce storms common to this region. Neither Caden nor the dragons moved. There will be resistance, the dragon continued. The Dracathi revere us, but they fear change. They will not easily accept a human in a position of authority. Then why choose me at all? Why not find a Dracathi candidate who shares these qualities? We have searched for generations. The Dracathi evolved as a collective species. Individual variation exists, but is subtle. They are strength and stability embodied. Admirable traits, but insufficient for the challenges ahead. What challenges? Draconis' mental voice grew grave. The same ones that destroyed our creators. War, resource depletion, the inability to overcome biological imperatives in favor of logical necessities. The Dracathi need perspective they cannot generate internally. Thunder boomed overhead, and the first heavy raindrops began to fall, sizzling as they struck Draconis' sun-warmed scales. Neither of them broke the connection. This is a lot to put on one person, Caden said. Yes, the dragon agreed simply. That is the nature of leadership. In the observation bunker, the gathering storm had created interference in their monitoring systems. Elder Vex pounded a clawed appendage against the console in frustration. We are losing visual, he complained. What is happening out there? Something unprecedented, Elder Zin replied, her compound eyes fixed on the blurring image. Something that will change everything. Commander Lennis stepped closer to the view screen, squinting to make out details through the intensifying rain. He's still alive, still standing his ground. For now, Elder MYK said ominously. But the storm approaches, and dragons are most dangerous during electrical storms. Their biology channels the energy, enhances their abilities. If they decide to strike now, on the plateau, Caden had become aware of the same fact through his link with Draconis. He could feel the electricity in the air being absorbed by the dragon's unique biology, energizing the massive creature. Power thrummed through the ancient being, making their mental connection even stronger, almost overwhelming. Your council observes us, Draconis noted. They expect me to kill you, as I have killed others who sought to claim leadership without understanding what it truly means. And will you? Caden asked, surprising himself with how calm he felt in the face of this possibility. The dragon's mental voice carried what might have been respect. That depends on your next choice, human. I have shown you what we are, what we need. Now you must decide. Will you turn away, return to your own kind and your own battles? Or will you accept this burden, knowing it may consume the remainder of your brief existence? Lightning split the sky, striking one of the nearby peaks. In its brilliant flash, Caden saw the other two dragons more clearly, one bronze-scaled with eyes like molten copper, the other silver-white with eyes of pale blue. They watched him intently, their massive bodies thrumming with the same storm energy that flowed through Draconis. He thought of his life before this moment, the battles fought for causes he barely understood, the emptiness that had driven him to accept increasingly dangerous missions. What did he have to return to? More combat? More temporary accommodations on whatever world had worked for someone with his skills? More nights staring at unfamiliar stars, feeling untethered from everything and everyone? Here, at least, was purpose. Connection. The very things he'd told Draconis he wanted. If I accept, he said slowly, what happens next? The dragon's mental voice carried grim amusement. Next, we prove to the Dracathi that their prophecy was correct, that their future lies with you, and through you, with humanity. And how do we do that? In answer, Draconis pulled back slightly, breaking their physical contact. The mental link remained, but fainter now, like a whisper rather than a shout. The massive dragon raised its head toward the storm-darkened sky and roared, a sound so powerful that Caden felt it in his bones, in his teeth, in the very core of his being. The other dragons answered in kind, their combined voices creating a harmony that seemed to vibrate at a frequency just beyond human perception. Caden felt dizzy, disoriented, as if the world around him was shifting in subtle, but fundamental ways. Then Dracones looked down at him again, those ancient eyes now glowing with internal fire, power made visible. Climb, the dragon commanded, lowering one massive foreleg to create a step. Prove your trust. Prove your courage. In the observation bunker, the monitoring equipment had recovered enough to show a blurry image of what was happening. Elder Vex recoiled from the screen in shock. The human approaches Dracones' neck. This is sacrilege. This is the prophecy unfolding. Elder Zin corrected, her voice hushed with awe. Watch and witness. Commander Lennis held his breath as he watched Caden, that troublesome, brilliant, damaged young man he'd rescued from a military tribunal 5 years ago, climb onto the back of the most dangerous predator known to exist in this sector of space. On the plateau, Caden moved carefully up Dracones' extended leg, finding handholds between the massive scales. The dragon remained perfectly still, allowing the climb. Rain pelted down on them both, making the scales slick and treacherous, but Caden's combat training served him well. He reached the base of the dragon's neck and paused, looking toward the ridged spine that ran its length. This is where riders sat, in the time of our creators, Dracones communicated. There is a natural seat between the third and fourth dorsal ridges. Caden found the spot, a depression in the armor-like scales that did indeed seem designed to accommodate a rider. He settled into it, finding that it fit his body surprisingly well. As soon as he was secure, he felt a subtle shift in their mental connection. The link strengthened again, but differently than before. Now it felt like a partnership, a joining of minds with distinct boundaries rather than the overwhelming flood of their initial contact. Hold fast, Dracones warned, muscles tensing beneath Caden. The massive wings unfurled to their full span, catching the wind and rain. With a powerful leap that drove the breath from Caden's lungs, they were airborne, rising through the storm into the turbulent sky. The other 2 dragons followed, flanking them as they climbed higher. Lightning flashed around them, seeming to bend toward the dragons rather than away. Each bolt that connected was absorbed into their bodies, causing their scales to glow momentarily with stored energy. Rather than fear, Caden felt exhilaration. Through their link, he experienced the dragon's joy in flight, in the storm, in the raw power of nature channeled through ancient biology. They burst through the cloud layer into clear air above, where the setting sun painted the top of the storm front in shades of gold and crimson. Below them, lightning illuminated the churning clouds from within, creating a spectacle unlike anything Caden had ever witnessed from the ground. This is how the world should be seen, Dracones communicated. From above. With perspective, Caden couldn't disagree. From this height, the Drakathy settlement, a sprawling collection of hive-like structures that housed nearly 1 million of the insectoid beings, looked small and fragile against the vast wilderness that covered most of the planet's surface. The Council will be tracking us, he said. What's our next move? We return, Dracones replied. But first, we hunt. The bond must be sealed with shared triumph. The dragon banked sharply, diving back into the storm clouds with the others close behind. They emerged below the worst of the turbulence, into the rain-swept valley that stretched away from the plateau. Caden squinted through the downpour, trying to see what prey could possibly be worth hunting for creatures of such immense size. Then he saw them, thunderbeasts, massive herbivores that traveled in small herds through the valleys, each one the size of a small shuttle, with thick hides that could repel most predators and multiple horns protruding from their armored heads. Even dragons must eat, Dracones communicated, sensing Caden's surprise. And the herd must be culled, the weak and sick removed so the strong may thrive. That, too, is leadership. They dove toward the herd, which scattered at their approach, but not quickly enough. Dracones selected a target, an older bull that moved more slowly than the others. With precision that belied its enormous size, the dragon struck, talons extending to grasp the thunder beast. The creature bellowed in defiance, swinging its horned head to strike at its attacker, but Dracones was too swift. A quick twist, a sharp crack, and the struggle was over. The other dragons claimed their own prey, and together they carried their kills to a high ridge away from the main herd. There, they landed to feed. Caden dismounted, watching with a mixture of fascination and primal discomfort as the dragons tore into the massive carcasses. Through their link, He felt Dracones' satisfaction, not cruelty or bloodlust, but the simple contentment of a predator fulfilling its natural role. "You do not join the feast?" the dragon inquired, pausing in its meal. "Human dietary requirements are a bit different," Caden replied with a wry smile. "But I appreciate the offer." The storm was beginning to subside, the rain reduced to a gentle patter. In the distance, Caden could see lights from the Dracothi settlement growing brighter as darkness fell. Soon, they would have to return and face the council. The thought made his stomach tighten with apprehension. "They will test you," Dracones warned, sensing his concern. "Question your right to lead. Challenge your understanding of their ways." "I know next to nothing about their culture," Caden admitted. "This seems like a recipe for disaster. Knowledge can be acquired. Wisdom is rarer. You will make mistakes. That is inevitable. But through our bond, you will have access to memories spanning centuries of Dracothi history. I will guide you when guidance is needed." The dragon finished its meal and rose, shaking rainwater from its scales like a massive dog. The action was so unexpectedly mundane that Caden found himself laughing. Through their link, he felt Dracones' amusement in return. "Shall we proceed to the next challenge?" the dragon asked. "The night grows long, and the council grows restless." Caden nodded, climbing back to his position between the dorsal ridges. As Dracones launched into the air once more, the other dragons fell into formation behind them. Together, they flew toward the Dracothi settlement, three massive shadows against the storm-cleared sky, carrying a human to his destiny. In the observation bunker, chaos had erupted. The monitoring systems had tracked the dragon's hunt, but lost them shortly after. Now, watchers posted throughout the settlement were reporting the dragon's return, with the humans still alive, still mounted on Dracones' back. "This changes nothing," Elder Vex insisted, though his mandibles clicked nervously. "The dragons have tolerated the human's presence. That does not make him our leader." The prophecy specifically mentioned taming, Elder Zen reminded him. "What would you call a human riding Dracones, if not taming?" "A temporary aberration," Vex replied stubbornly. "Dragons are not beasts to be tamed. They are forces of nature, guardians. They choose our leaders through signs and portents, not by becoming mounts." Commander Linus, who had been silent during much of the exchange, finally spoke. "Perhaps we should ask them directly what this means. They're landing in the central plaza now." Indeed, the dragons were descending toward the heart of the settlement, the vast open space reserved for ceremonial gatherings and, traditionally, for the dragon's appearances when a new Grand Elder was to be named. Thousands of Dracothi were already streaming into the plaza, drawn by the commotion and the rare sight of all three dragons appearing together. Elder MYK's compound eyes reflected concern. "This is unprecedented. The dragons never enter the settlement proper except for the choosing ceremony. And that happens in daylight, with proper preparations. Perhaps they're tired of waiting for you to accept their choice," Linus suggested, heading for the bunker's exit. "I suggest we get down there before your people panic." The elders exchanged glances, then hurried after the human commander. Whatever was happening, they needed to be present for it. Their authority, perhaps their very way of life, hung in the balance. By the time they reached the central plaza, a scene of unprecedented drama was unfolding. The three dragons had landed in a triangular formation, with Dracones at the apex. Caden still sat astride the great black dragon's neck, illuminated by the settlement's lights and by the occasional flash of residual lightning from the departing storm. Thousands of Dracothi surrounded them at a respectful distance, their normally ordered society thrown into confusion by this unexpected appearance. Murmurs rippled through the crowd as the elders and Commander Linus pushed their way to the front. "Dracones!" Elder Vex called out, his voice amplified by the translator device at his throat. "What is the meaning of this intrusion?" The great dragon lowered its head, bringing Caden closer to eye level with the gathered elders. Through their mental link, Dracones communicated to him alone. "Now comes the true test, human. Not of your courage, but of your wisdom. Speak to them. Tell them what they need to hear." Caden swallowed hard, suddenly acutely aware of the thousands of alien eyes fixed upon him. What could he possibly say to convince an ancient species to accept a human, an orphan from a world they had never seen, as their leader? Then he remembered Dracones' words. Leadership is not about knowing. It is about learning. About adaptation. He straightened his back and addressed the crowd, his voice steady despite the magnitude of the moment. People of Drakith, I come before you not as a conqueror, not as an imposer of human ways, but as a bridge. The dragons have chosen to forge a bond with me that has not existed in your society for thousands of years. They have shown me your history, the greatness of your past, and the challenges of your future. Elder Vex stepped forward, mandibles clicking in agitation. The dragons choose our leaders through signs and omens, not by allowing themselves to be ridden like common beasts. This is a perversion of our sacred traditions. Caden felt Draconis' irritation flare through their link. The dragon's thoughts came to him clearly. They have forgotten. The riders were how our creators intended us to bond with those we guide. Tell them, you've misunderstood your own history, Caden said, his voice carrying across the hushed plaza. The dragons were created by an ancient race to be guardians and partners, not distant oracles. The bond between rider and dragon was how they originally shared wisdom and guidance. That tradition was lost over time, replaced by interpretation and guesswork. Elder Zin moved closer, her ancient eyes studying Caden with newfound interest. You claim to know our history better than we who have lived it. I claim only to know what Draconis has shared with me, Caden replied. Test it if you wish. Ask me questions only the dragons would know the answers to. A challenge flickered in the elder's compound eyes. Very well. In the time of Ash, when the southern continent burned, what did the dragons reveal to Grand Elder Mox that saved our people? The answer flowed into Caden's mind through his connection with Draconis. Images of underground caverns beneath the burning forests, natural shelters where the Dracathi had weathered the devastation. They showed him the deep havens, Caden answered. The cave systems that run beneath the searing plains. Your people sheltered there for 2 generations while the surface recovered. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Elder Zin's mandibles clicked rapidly, her species equivalent of a shocked intake of breath. That information is contained only in the private records of the Grand Elders, she said quietly. No outsider has access to it. Elder Vex was not so easily convinced. One correct answer proves nothing. The human could have been briefed on our history. Then ask another question, Caden suggested calmly. Or better yet, ask the dragons directly. They can communicate with any of you who are willing to approach them as I did, with an open mind and without fear. The plaza fell silent as the elders exchanged glances. None of them moved toward the dragons. You fear them, Caden realized aloud. All these generations, you've revered them from a distance, but never truly connected with them. Never understood them. The dragons are sacred, Elder MYK said stiffly. Approaching them as you did is forbidden. Forbidden by whom? Caden challenged. By the dragons? Or by your own traditions, built on misunderstanding and fear? The rain had stopped completely now, and the clouds were beginning to break apart, revealing stars in the night sky above. Draconis shifted beneath Caden, and he sensed the dragon's impatience growing. Enough words, came the mental command. Show them. Understanding what the dragon intended, Caden nodded. I'll make you an offer, he said to the assembled elders. One of you approaches Draconis. Experience the connection firsthand. If you still reject what the dragons have chosen after that, we will leave your world and trouble you no further. Commander Lennis stepped forward unexpectedly. I'll do it, he volunteered. No, Caden replied. It must be one of them. This is their world, their future at stake. The elders conferred among themselves in hushed tones. Finally, to everyone's surprise, it was Elder Vex, the most vocally opposed to Caden's presence, who stepped forward. I will test this claim, he announced. If it is false, the human will answer to our justice. Draconis lowered his massive head until it rested on the ground before the elder. Caden felt the dragon's amusement at the Drakathi's obvious terror, poorly concealed beneath a veneer of dignity. Place your hand upon his snout, Caden instructed. Open your mind to the connection. Elder Vex hesitated, then slowly extended a trembling appendage toward the dragon's gleaming black scales. The moment contact was made, the elder went rigid, his compound eyes widening in shock. For several long minutes, no one moved. The assembled Drakathi watched in stunned silence as one of their most respected leaders communed with the creature their society had revered from a fearful distance for countless generations. When Vex finally stepped back, His carapace had taken on a pale, ashen hue, the Drakathy equivalent of a human gone white with shock. "It is true," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "All of it. We have misunderstood for so long." He turned to address the crowd, his normally authoritative voice now humbled. "The dragons were created to form bonds with those they guide, to share knowledge directly, not through signs and portents that we struggle to interpret. They have chosen the human because he approached them without our preconceptions, our self-imposed limitations." A murmur ran through the assembled Drakathy. Elderzen stepped forward next, her ancient eyes fixed on Caden. "If what Vex says is true, then the prophecy has indeed been fulfilled. But what does this mean for our people? Will you rule us, human?" Caden shook his head. "Not rule. Guide. Partner. There's a difference. Your civilization has reached a crossroads. The dragons know this. They've been trying to tell you for generations, but the message was lost in translation." He gestured to the stars visible through breaks in the clouds. "Out there are challenges and opportunities your people have never imagined. Humanity has faced many of them already. Together, humans, Drakathy, and dragons in true partnership, we can achieve what none of us could alone." The silence that followed his words was profound. Then, slowly, Elderzen lowered herself in what Caden recognized through his link with Draconis as a gesture of formal acceptance. One by one, the other elders followed suit. Throughout the plaza, thousands of Drakathy did the same. Commander Lennis watched with undisguised amazement. When he caught Caden's eye, he offered a small, proud smile and a nod of respect. As the Drakathy rose from their gesture of acceptance, Elderzen spoke, her translator converting her clicks and whistles into words Caden could understand. "The dragons have chosen. We accept their wisdom, as we always have. Caden Voss, human orphan who knows the void between stars, you will be our grand elder. Through you, our people will find new paths among the stars." Draconis rumbled beneath Caden, a sound of satisfaction that vibrated through his entire body. Through their mental link, the dragon's thoughts came clearly. And so it begins. Dawn broke over the Drakathy settlement, painting the hive-like structures in hues of amber and gold. Caden stood on the balcony of the Grand Elder's quarters, watching the first rays of sunlight touch the distant mountains where he had met Draconis just yesterday. It seemed like a lifetime ago. "Troubled thoughts, Grand Elder?" came Commander Lennis's voice from behind him. Caden turned to face his old mentor, still uncomfortable with the formal title. "Just wondering if I've made a terrible mistake." Lennis joined him at the balcony's edge, his weathered face thoughtful. "Having second thoughts about accepting the position? About whether I'm qualified for it," Caden clarified. "These people have put their faith in me based on a prophecy and a dragon's choice. What happens when they realize I'm just a soldier with no diplomatic training, no leadership experience, and absolutely no idea how to guide an alien civilization? Then they'll have something in common with every leader who ever lived," Lennis replied with a wry smile. "No one starts ready, Caden. Leadership isn't about having all the answers. It's about asking the right questions and having the courage to act on what you learn." Before Caden could respond, a Drakathy attendant appeared at the chamber entrance, mandibles clicking respectfully. "Grand Elder, the council awaits your presence." Caden nodded, straightening the formal robes that had been provided for him. A blend of traditional Drakathy, design modified to accommodate human physiology. Time to face the music. As they walked through the corridors of the council hive, Drakathy workers paused in their tasks, compound eyes following Caden's progress with mixed expressions of curiosity, hope, and lingering skepticism. News of his acceptance as Grand Elder had spread throughout the settlement overnight, but acceptance of the fact didn't necessarily translate to confidence in his ability. Through his mental link with Draconis, Caden sensed the dragon's presence circling high above the settlement. The connection was more muted at this distance, but still there, a reassuring background hum in his consciousness. "They doubt," Caden communicated silently to the dragon. "As they should," came the response. "Blind faith is the enemy of progress. Let them doubt. Let them question. Prove yourself through actions, not words." The council chamber was a vast hexagonal room with a domed ceiling that admitted natural light through carefully positioned apertures. The 24 members of the Drakathy Council waited on tiered platforms, their carapaces representing every shade from deep blue to burnished copper. At the center stood a platform historically reserved for the Grand Elder, now awaiting Caden. Elder Zen, who had emerged as his strongest supporter among the council, gestured toward the central position. Grand Elder Voss, the council welcomes you to your first formal session. Caden took his place, acutely aware of the historic nature of the moment, the first human to lead a non-human civilization. The weight of responsibility settled on his shoulders like a physical burden. I thank the council for its welcome, he began, the translator at his throat converting his words into the clicking language of the Drakathy. I stand before you not as a replacement for your traditions, but as a bridge to a new understanding of them. The dragons have given us an opportunity to reconnect with knowledge that was lost. Together, we will find the path forward. Elder MYK leaned forward. Fine words, Grand Elder. But the challenges facing our people require more than words. The drought in the Eastern Territories threatens our food production. The mineral shortages in the northern mines jeopardize our technological development. What solutions do you propose? Caden felt a momentary panic. These were complex issues he knew nothing about. But before he could fumble for a response, information flowed into his mind through his link with Draconis. Geological surveys conducted by dragons centuries ago, weather patterns observed over millennia, solutions implemented during similar crises in the distant past. The Eastern drought is part of a weather cycle that occurs approximately every 3 centuries, Caden said, the knowledge feeling both foreign and familiar as it passed through him. The dragons observed the last occurrence during the reign of Grand Elder Tix's predecessor. There are underground aquifers beneath the searing plains that can be tapped without ecological damage. He turned to address the concerns about the mines. As for the mineral shortages, your current mining techniques focus exclusively on deposits within mountain ranges. The dragons have observed rich veins of the same minerals in the seabed of the Western Ocean, accessible with modifications to your existing technology. The council chamber fell silent as the elders processed this information. Elder Vex, still skeptical despite his experience with Draconis, clicked his mandibles in irritation. Convenient answers, provided by creatures we cannot directly question. How do we verify this information? Dispatch survey teams, Caden suggested. I'll personally accompany them, along with any council members who wish to observe. The dragons will guide us to the locations they've identified. Elder Zin's compound eyes reflected approval. A practical approach. I move that we authorize these expeditions immediately. The vote passed with a clear majority, though several council members abstained. Caden could feel their reservations, their fear of change. He couldn't blame them. Their society had operated a certain way for thousands of years. Change, even necessary change, rarely came without resistance. As the council session continued, Caden found himself drawing more and more on the knowledge Draconis shared through their link. The dragon's memories contained solutions to many of the problems facing the Drakathy, solutions they had been blind to because of their rigid adherence to tradition and their reluctance to directly engage with the dragons. By midday, the council had approved a series of expeditions and initiatives that would address their most pressing concerns. As the session adjourned, Elder Zen approached Caden privately. You have impressed many today, Grand Elder, she said. But convincing the council is only the beginning. The true test will come when you must lead our people through the implementation of these changes. Caden nodded. I'm aware. Change is never easy, especially when it challenges centuries of established practice. Indeed. And there is another matter we must discuss. The elder's voice dropped lower. Not all Drakathy accept the prophecy or the dragon's choice. There are factions forming. Some who see your appointment as an opportunity for our people, others who view it as contamination by outside influence. Opposition is to be expected, Caden said, though the news still troubled him. How serious is the threat? Uncertain at present. But be vigilant, Grand Elder. Not all dangers announce themselves as openly as a dragon's roar. With that cryptic warning, she departed, leaving Caden to ponder the challenges ahead. He made his way back to his quarters, where Commander Lennis waited with news from the human diplomatic corps. Earth Central is ecstatic, Lennis reported. A human Grand Elder of the Drakathy Alliance opens diplomatic and trade possibilities we've been pursuing for decades. They're sending an official delegation to recognize your position and establish formal relations. Caden frowned. I'm not here to serve human interests, Lennis. The dragons chose me to guide the Drakathy. And that guidance can benefit both species, Linus countered. Isn't that what you told the council? Partnership, not dominance. Before their discussion could continue, an urgent summons arrived. The survey team heading to the Eastern Territories had departed hours ago, accompanied by the Bronze Dragon, and was reporting unusual findings. Caden's presence was requested immediately. He found Elder MYK coordinating the response in the communications center, her normally composed demeanor showing signs of agitation. The survey team discovered something unexpected, she explained. An artificial structure buried beneath the sand. Metallic, non-Drakathy in origin, and extremely ancient. Show me, Caden requested. The video feed revealed a massive curved surface emerging from the desert floor, its metal skin etched with symbols unlike any in Drakathy records. Through his link with Draconis, Caden felt a surge of recognition and alarm. Pull them back, he ordered immediately. Establish a perimeter and wait for my arrival. Elder MYK's compound eyes narrowed. You recognize this artifact? Draconis does, Caden replied grimly. It's a ship, one belonging to the civilization that created the dragons. The journey to the Eastern Territories took less than an hour aboard Draconis. As they soared over the arid landscape, Caden absorbed everything the dragon knew about their creators, a species called the Vexari, master geneticists who had engineered the dragons as guardians and companions before their civilization collapsed under the weight of internal conflicts. Why didn't you tell me about this before? Caden asked through their mental link. Because I did not know it was here, Draconis replied. This vessel does not match the design of any I have memory of. It may predate even my creation. They landed near the excavation site, where a perimeter had been established as ordered. The bronze dragon was already there, circling protectively overhead. Elder MYK and several council members had arrived ahead of them, along with a team of Drakathy scientists who were documenting the find without touching it. The ship, for it was unmistakably a spacecraft of some kind, had begun to emerge from the sand due to the recent drought conditions and the survey team's activities. Only a small portion was visible, but it was enough to confirm its artificial nature. The metallic surface gleamed dully in the harsh sunlight, covered in symbols that shifted and changed as Caden watched. Active technology, he murmured, approaching cautiously. After all this time, Elder MYK moved to his side. Our instruments detect power signatures within. Minimal, but present. What does this mean for our people, Grand Elder? Caden didn't have a ready answer. Through Draconis, he sensed both wonder and apprehension at the discovery. The dragon's creators had been an advanced species, but their technology had ultimately contributed to their downfall. What secrets or dangers might this vessel contain? As he stood contemplating the find, the ground beneath them trembled slightly. The exposed section of the ship pulsed with light, and the symbols rearranged themselves into patterns that Draconis recognized with shock. It acknowledges our presence, the dragon communicated. It knows what I am and what you are. Before Caden could respond, a seam appeared in the metal surface, widening to reveal an entrance. Light spilled from within, bathing the gathered observers in a soft blue glow. Elder MYK's mandibles clicked rapidly. Is it inviting us inside? Not us, Caden realized aloud. Me, or more specifically, a dragon and its rider. The combination it was programmed to recognize. The implications were staggering. A vessel from the dragon's creators, lying dormant for perhaps tens of thousands of years, now activating in response to the first true dragon-rider bond in Drakathy history. This was no coincidence. The prophecy, Elder Zin whispered, having joined them moments before. It spoke not just of new paths among the stars, but of reclaiming ancient knowledge. Perhaps this is what was foretold. Caden looked from the waiting doorway to the gathered Drakathy, then up to Draconis, whose massive head hovered just above them, eyes fixed on the ship with ancient recognition. This changes everything, he said quietly. Whatever is inside that ship could transform your civilization, for better or worse. Elder MYK's compound eyes reflected the blue light emanating from the vessel. What do you propose, Grand Elder? Caden straightened. Decision made. I'll enter alone first, with Draconis maintaining our mental link. If it's safe, we'll bring in a small team of your scientists. Whatever we find, we proceed cautiously, analyzing everything before implementing any technology or knowledge it contains. He turned to face the gathered council members directly. This is why the dragons chose an outsider. Not because I have superior knowledge or abilities, but because sometimes seeing things from a new perspective reveals truths hidden in plain sight. The answers your people have sought were here all along, waiting for the right moment, the right combination of circumstances to reveal themselves. As he approached the entrance, Caden felt Draconis' consciousness flowing strongly through their link, ancient memories awakening in response to the vessel's beckoning light. Whatever lay within would change the course of not just the Dracothi civilization, but potentially humanity's as well. New paths among the stars, indeed. He stepped through the doorway into brilliant blue light, the first human to enter a Vexery vessel in recorded history. Behind him, dragons and Dracothi alike watched in silent awe as the Orphan, who had tamed the greatest of dragons, embarked on the next chapter of an unfolding prophecy that would unite their civilizations in ways none could have imagined. Within the ship, knowledge awaited, secrets of the dragon's creators, technologies beyond current understanding, and perhaps answers to questions both species had yet to ask. As Caden moved deeper into the vessel, Draconis' voice echoed in his mind with what might have been hope. And so our true journey begins. And that was the end of the story. If you listened all the way to here, don't forget to leave feedback about what you thought of the story in the comments, whether positive or negative. Your feedback helps us improve. Also leave your like and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this one. And I'll leave here on the screen another video that I'm sure you'll like. Big hug, and see you in the next story.